Overnight trips are definitely something that you can do and something that makes you feel wonderful to be able to do a trip, to be able to just get away and do something fun someplace else. Welcome to part 2. When last we left, Nani of the Chronicles of Nani, our hero, was telling everybody about overnight trips and drinking out of her Cincinnati coffee mug, and encouraging you to subscribe, which I still encourage you to subscribe, because if you have MS, if it's progressive or not, or if you have any other chronic illness, care about somebody who has one, care for somebody who has one, there's some great ideas and pieces of advice in this vlog, and it's definitely worth subscribing to. Hit the little bell if you want to be told ahead of time that, hey, there's a new one coming out. Or if you prefer just to be surprised and plan to sit back with a cup of coffee and a big bowl of popcorn and binge watch what you haven't seen, that's cool too. But we're going to go back now into part 2 of Overnighters, and more information and cool stuff to hear about. And we'll finish up starting now. A few years ago, David and I were on a different vacation at the same time that my brother and his family were on a vacation. They rented a beach house in the Outer Banks, and David and I joined them for a couple of days, and we went to Kitty Hawk, North Carolina, which is where the Wright Brothers First Flight Museum is at, and the monument that's there. That's another one of those things that's a National Historical Site, and it's listed on those things that you can get in for free with the National Parks card. So we got to park for free and get into the museum for free. The stuff inside the museum is fascinating for the first flight. On the day that we went, it had rained earlier in the day. It quit raining by the time that we were finished with the stuff that we were doing inside, and we were able to go out without rain falling outside and see some different things. I was in the manual wheelchair at the time, so I did not go all the way to the top to look at the monument for the Wright brothers. My arms were just saying, nope, I am not wheeling all the way up there. And David looked at it and said, I could push you, but I'd probably have broken legs and be exhausted by the time we got up there too. And I said, nope, go on up there, take my camera, get pictures. So he went up to the top to look at the monument. I could still see the monument from down below. But if we were to go out there now, it might be a fly out in the area type thing and rent a wheelchair accessible van, simply because that's a little bit more than a day trip from where we're at. With the power wheelchair, I can definitely go up to the top now. And then while we were there, we went to different lighthouses and saw the lighthouses. There were a couple of them that David could walk all the way up to the top, and Cape Hatteras he did. Those are steps, those are not ramps that get up to the top of the lighthouse. And it's probably a really expensive and difficult to do thing to change all those steps into ramps. Although it might be easier than just for disabled people to get to the top. if they did change that to ramps and just go up in a spiral. Yeah, or maybe it's just not something that they'll do. Even though since the redone ADA passed in 2010, and since that time, if you call Washington with a question about the ADA and something that isn't accessible, you will hear a broken record of they had 20 years to comply before 2010, and now there is no grandfather in the ADA, and everybody has to have everything accessible. I've called a couple of times, not wanting to mention names of places, because we're talking about stores or small museums. You really don't want to have them stuck with the fines that go with not being accessible. But you want to get that information so you can share it with them. There was one store locally that I really like to go to, but it had become impossible for a wheelchair to get through. As a matter of fact, the wheelchair did not fit through any of the aisleways for leaving the store. So you not only couldn't buy your purchases, but you couldn't get out of the store. It was like the wheelchair hotel shop California. You can check out anytime you want, but you can't ever leave. So I had sent a letter to the store, and the store manager wrote back, we were just starting to upgrade things to make them more accessible, which is what you say when somebody writes a letter complaining and they've been kind enough not to turn you in, but to tell you this is what's wrong. They tell you, oh, we were just in the process, you just missed it. And next time you go in, it is fixed. And you can pat yourself on the back for fixing it for everybody else who's in a wheelchair. At this store, they made one lane big enough for a wheelchair to get through. That was really all it took. If a wheelchair can't get out of the store, because it was automatic doors, so an automatic door to get into the store, if you can't get to the automatic door to get out of the store because you can't get through the checkout, it's a fire hazard. Now that first time I was shopping with a friend, and she was able to check my purchases out for me, and then I had to go back to the beginning of the store, and she stood outside the front of the door to automatically have it open so that I could leave through the front door. It didn't take much to fix it. I mean, they had to change one checkout aisle so a wheelchair could fit through it. That's all it took. And then making sure that their end caps and aisleways were the right size. And so it didn't take a lot of work to fix it, but they fixed it and I could shop there now. Bigger places and larger businesses may look at the idea of, well, so we'll pay the fee. It's cheaper than upgrading. Eventually those fees will get bigger and it's not going to be cheaper than upgrading. One of the things right now is flying. And my husband was convinced there's no way you can fly. Well, it depends. Some airlines haven't figured it out yet. I was reading an article about airlines using the same kind of system they use for clamping down a wheelchair in a train or a bus. That takes making the doors a little wider and stuff, so it's a little bit bigger issue on a plane. However, there are some airlines that have I think they're called skylifts or something like that, where they take you into a boarding area, private boarding area, and they use the lift, their own sling, and the lift that picks you up and puts you in a seat that fits in as an aisle seat, and they can at that point get you through the door and push you in and clamp down your seat, your aisle seat. They don't have the right to tell me I have to bring somebody with me. I should be able to travel alone when I'm traveling by plane. In some places, and this is before 2010, what they insisted was that for insurance and liability reasons, they can't lift you out of your chair. So the person that you're traveling with would have to lift you out of your wheelchair, put you into one of their wheelchairs that'll fit on the plane, and then lift you out of that wheelchair and put you in a seat. So there are a lot of different things that they are doing with flying, and if you fly the right airline, they will be able to pick you up out of your seat with their lift and put you into an aisle seat that can be wheeled onto the plane and clamped down. They have not yet gotten to alterations that you can take your power wheelchair onto the plane and be clamped down like you're in a bus. I read a couple of articles that they're looking at being able to do it, but they can't do it yet. Definitely, if you're flying by plane, check ahead of time if they've got a sky lift that they can put you in the seat themselves, that you can travel alone, or you don't have to depend on the person or people that you're traveling with to lift you up and move you. Those are definitely the companies you don't want to fly with. You want to fly with the ones that say, yes, we can help you. The one thing that the ADA does require, so it is federal requirement, you don't have a choice about this, is when they move you into your seat and they check your power wheelchair as baggage. If they if they break your chair, the airline is responsible for replacing or fixing it, which is fantastic, except once you get to your destination, especially if you have a customized power chair and they break your chair, what are they going to do so that you can enjoy your trip once you're at your destination? Even if it's an overnight trip, it's just a question of, is your wheelchair comfortable enough? If you can't leave the wheelchair, wonderful thing about accessible rooms is a good accessible room that you can get close enough to the sink and the mirror to brush your teeth or wipe, clean off makeup, or just, wash your face at night, and you can actually get close enough to use the sink yourself and not have to have help, and that's nice too. The places that we've traveled, I find that the Canadian hotels are in general superior as far as the accessible rooms and having enough room that you can actually move a wheelchair around in them. American hotels are catching up. I found that it doesn't matter if it's a small franchise like a Super 8 or a Red Roof Inn, something like that, or if it's a large hotel and it's one of the more pricey ones. That doesn't make a difference as far as how good the accessible rooms are. We have been in really fancy hotels and really expensive hotels and you call this an accessible room? How? And we've also been in some small, mom and pop owners of the franchise, or even just a small, Joe's Motel, stay here. That their accessible rooms are fantastic, or a hotel that's new enough that they've gone through upgrading or building after 2010, that they are really sticking to and even going beyond the ADA rules for putting together an accessible room, and they're fantastic. The people that are refilling and taking care of things for the free breakfast that goes with most hotels are usually right there if there's somebody that's in a wheelchair. Is there something I can help you with? What would you like from the breakfast bar? And I can get it all ready for you. We can put a plate together for you. Would you like a waffle? And just go ahead and pull up to a table and I'll bring your meal over to you. So that they do a fantastic job of taking care of their guests also. So those are some of the things that you can do for an overnight trip. Just because you are stuck in a wheelchair and you really can't get out of your wheelchair, that doesn't make you homebound. That means that it takes a little bit more work. You may spend as much time planning a weekend as you would planning a full week vacation, but totally worth it. So look at your wheelchair as, I've got a wheelchair van. It'll get me someplace that I can spend the night. I can go to museums, I can go to zoos, I can go to the park, and I can prepare a great picnic, or I can buy something for a wonderful picnic, or you can bring your grill in and grill in the park. There are even power wheelchair that you can't get out of without the assistance of a lift. You can still do an overnight trip. It just means that you're not changing your pants overnight. That means make sure you have a placemat in your lap when you eat something in the car, or where you don't have a table in front of you. In restaurants, you're still okay. Overnight trips are definitely something that you can do, and something that makes you feel wonderful to be able to do a trip, to be able to just get away and do something fun someplace else. Make sure you remember to bring your camera, because they're memories you're going to want to remember, and it's something that's going to be a lot of fun that you've had in your wheelchair. Make sure you hit that subscribe button, and the little bell next to it means that you'll get a message in your email to say, hey, don't miss the premiere, or that there's something new. And if you'd rather just go on your own and I'm going to come and watch it whenever I can, then just hit subscribe and know that we will always be here, and that you are always welcome to come have a cup of coffee with me. And that's it for this week. Have a fantastic week, and I will be back here to be seen by you next Friday.